Dead. The white man accused of killing 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket is scheduled to appear in court today as authorities continue to investigate the possibility of hate crime or terrorism charges. 18-year-old Peyton Gendron live-streamed the attack from a helmet camera before surrendering to police outside the grocery store. He had posted hundreds of pages of writings to online discussion groups where he detailed his plans for the assault and his racist motivation before the killings. At an initial court appearance last week, Gendron's court-appointed lawyer entered a plea of not guilty on his behalf. New York Governor Kathy Hochul declared domestic terrorism to be public enemy number one while announcing moves to prevent future massacres in her state. Linda Perry of Pacifica station WBAI in New York reports.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul called on the New York State Legislature to pass a package of bills to close gun loopholes and provide law enforcement with more tools. She's also launching a threat evaluation management program.
And this is going to have multidisciplinary teams in our counties across the state. These stakeholders need to be communicating and sharing information, so guess what? They can start to connect the dots. And that's what we did after 9/11, and that's what we're going to do now.
Hochul also announced the creation of a domestic terrorism unit focusing on monitoring social media.
Because there's a feeding frenzy going on in social media that hate just breeds more hate.
The New York governor also called on New York State Attorney General Tish James to look into social media platforms which broadcast the deadly racist attack at the Buffalo supermarket. James says we are taking serious action to investigate these companies for their role in the attack. Linda Perry, WBAI News, New York.
The House passed a domestic terrorism bill to devote more federal resources to preventing crimes like the racist mass shooting in Buffalo. The Wednesday night vote was along party lines, with one Republican, Illinois' Adam Kinzinger, voting in favor. Eileen Alfandary at Pacifica station KPFA reports.
South Carolina Democrat James Clyburn called it heartbreaking to be debating the domestic terrorism legislation just days after the massacre at a Buffalo, New York supermarket targeting black shoppers.
We cannot continue to turn a blind eye to white supremacist vigilantes.
The bill would set up 3 offices, one each in the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, and the FBI. Those offices would be charged with monitoring, investigating, and prosecuting cases of domestic terrorism, with a focus on the threat posed by white supremacists. Some progressive Democrats had opposed a previous version over civil liberties concerns, but the number 2 House Democrat, Steny Hoyer, said the legislation was tweaked and those concerns allayed. Still, Hina Shamsi, the director of the ACLU National Security Project, said the impulse to do something should not result in creating domestic terrorism crimes using law enforcement powers that for decades have harmed the very communities needing protection. I'm Eileen Alfandary for Pacifica Radio.
A Russian soldier facing war crimes charges in Ukraine testified today he was obeying orders of his superior when he shot a 62-year-old civilian man in the head and asked for the victim's widow for forgiveness. Katerina Shelipova said she saw her husband, Alexander, shot dead just outside their home and called for a life sentence for the 21-year-old soldier. She also said she wouldn't mind if he's exchanged as part of a possible swap for Ukrainian defenders at the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. Chris Jones has more.
It's the first case of a Russian soldier being put on trial for war crimes inside Ukraine. But Dr. Gayan Norijaninian from the Department of European Law at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy says it won't be the last.
There are at least 2 more cases that are ready to go to court. One of them relates to murder of a man and repeated rape of his wife, and another one is related to bombing and shelling of civilian objects and protected objects such as schools and hospitals.
Chris Jones reporting.
Russia says it's captured more than 1,700 soldiers from the Mariupol steel plant, and the Red Cross says it's registered hundreds of Ukrainian prisoners of war from Mariupol. The United Nations Secretary General says he's in intense contact with Russia and other countries to stop an escalating food shortage exacerbated by the war in Ukraine.
Russia must permit the safe and secure export of grain stored in Ukrainian ports. Alternative transportation routes can be explored, even if we know that by itself they will not be enough to solve the problem. And Russian food and fertilizers must have unrestricted access to world markets without indirect impediments. I have been in intense contact on this issue at the senior leadership level with the Russian Federation, Ukraine, Turkey, the United States, the European Union, and several other key countries. I am hopeful, but there is still a long way to go.
Guterres spoke at a hearing at the UN Security Council on food security Wednesday. He said Ukraine and Russia together produce about a third of the world's wheat and barley and half of its sunflower oil. The Secretary General said the number of people facing severe food insecurity has doubled in just 2 years, from 135 million to 276 million today. The U.S. Senate is poised to pass a $40 billion infusion of military and economic aid for Ukraine today. The president's signature is expected. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a stark warning of environmental disaster and called for robust investment in renewable energy Wednesday after release of a new report from the World Meteorological Organization found record highs in greenhouse gas concentrations, ocean heat, sea level rise, and ocean acidification last year.
The global energy system is broken and bringing us ever closer to climate catastrophe. Fossil fuels are a dead end, environmentally and economically. We must end fossil fuel pollution and accelerate the renewable energy transition before we incinerate our only home. Time is running out.
The State of the Climate Report for 2021 says the last 7 years were the 7 hottest on record. Guterres is calling for a shift away from government subsidies for fossil fuels that now total $500 billion per year, and government reforms to promote renewable energies to fast-track solar and wind projects and expand access to raw materials used in renewable technology. The Israeli military says it's identified a soldier's rifle that may have killed Al Jazeera journalist, Palestinian-American Shireen Abu Akleh, but a military official says it cannot be certain unless Palestinians turn over the bullet for analysis. Palestinian Authority says she was killed by Israeli fire and is refusing to hand over the bullet. It's demanding an independent investigation. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.